in color. The continuing story of Peyton Place. Starring Dorothy Malone as Constance Mackenzie, Ed Nelson as Michael Rossi, Ryan O'Neill as Rodney Harrington, Barbara Parkins as Betty Anderson, Tim O'Connor as Elliot Carson, Christopher Connolly as Norman Harrington, Patricia Morrow as Rita Harrington, James Douglas as Stephen Cord.
Stephen Cord has known for some time that his grandfather, Martin Peyton, has been seeing a much younger woman. Tonight, the young woman has been brought into the house as a guest, and Stephen must deal with his grandfather's manipulations once again.
Adrienne, welcome. Oh, may I present my granddaughter-in-law, Betty Cord? Betty, this is Miss Van Leyden.
How do you do?
Betty?
Ah, Stephen, you're just in time. This is my grandson, Stephen Cord. Stephen, Adrienne Van Leyden.
Stephen?
Happy birthday, Adrienne.
Thank you, Mark.
I took the liberty of reviving an old custom. Mrs. Van Leyden's husband always filled their home with her favorite flowers on her birthday.
A charming tribute.
And to think I settled for a dozen red roses. How could you bear to be away from him on this occasion? I had such an attentive husband.
Mr. Van Leyden is dead, Betty. He passed away some 6 months ago.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Well, I imagine you three young people can pursue this conversation on your feet, but I'm ready to sit down. Adrienne, my dear, will you sit here, please? Thank you. Well, you're looking a bit pale, my dear. The journey must have been fatiguing. Stephen, see what the ladies will have to drink.
How do you like your martinis, Mrs. Van Leyden? Dry, super dry, or parched?
I think I'll just have a glass of dry sherry, please.
Of course. Betty?
Nothing.
Philip Van Leyden. Dr. Philip Van Leyden. His picture was on the cover of one of those news magazines about 2 years ago for some brilliant piece of research he'd done on a,
Stephen, Dr. Van Leyden was a specialist in blood disorders.
That was it. He died suddenly, didn't he? Some kind of an accident?
Yes.
Well, his death must have been a great shock to you.
Yes.
Such a tragic, needless loss.
All accidents are tragic to ordinary men, Mr. Cord. My husband wasn't an ordinary man. He worked to prolong life, yet he accepted the fact that death is the end of all human existence. It didn't shock him, and he didn't consider it tragic.
Oh, how comforting. If you can believe that.
Dr. Van Leyden was a genius and a great human being. That I'm alive today, Stephen, speaks well for both those rare qualities. He had only one major weakness, his wife. He loved you very much, Adrienne, almost to the point of distraction. But any man that knew you couldn't fail to understand that.
Mrs. Van Leyden? That's a stunning piece of jewelry. It's unique, isn't it, Betty?
Yes, it's one of a kind.
Your grandfather has wonderful taste. And he never forgets my birthday.
My privilege, my dear.
Well, you know, the trip was rather long. I wonder if I could freshen up a bit.
I'll show you to your room.
Thank you.
beautiful, isn't she?
Come in.
You busy?
No, Connie, come on in, come in.
I'll just be a minute.
Oh, it's all right. Here, sit right here. Tell me, what special occasion brings you to the hospital? If not to see me, you can lie a little bit.
Well, I've been wondering how Rachel managed the trip to the hospital. And what the hospital's like.
Well, it's a fine place, really. I talked to one of the psychiatric assistants there, and he was up on everything. I think the staff there is certainly excellent. The trip was, well, to say the least, unbearable. We stopped at Grand Junction, you know, to get some coffee. I thought she was asleep. Her head was bowed over there in the corner by the window, and we had just passed that green area, fields and rolling hills. What do they call it?
Saxon Meadow?
Yeah. And she started to talk in a low, kind of strange voice. It was like crooning, you know. And she said how sorry she was that she was sick and she wouldn't be able to be with her father, Mr. Carson. How she'd been away from him so much before. She remembered a cap that she'd bought at the toy bazaar for her baby brother, Matthew. She had it on layaway, and how wonderful it would look on him when the cold weather came out again. And how much she missed her talks with her grandfather in his little store. The saddest part of it all was the kind of strange inflection she had in her voice, a kind of a tone that was different. It wasn't her voice at all. As if she was trying to imagine what Allison's voice must have sounded like. Well, it sounded like one of those old phonograph records, you know, where the voice doesn't sound human or...
I cleaned out her room. Allison's room. Everything. I brought it all over here to the hospital, to the hospital auxiliary. Dresses, toys, stuffed animals, everything.
You're an amazing woman, Connie. You're amazing.
It wasn't so bad after I made up my mind. When Allison comes back, she'll just have to start from scratch.
Well, the amazing thing about you is that you realize you have to start from scratch. Most people never get to that point, you know?
I had no choice. I had to clean house, mentally as well as physically. For Matthew's sake, if no other.
Yeah.
Remember what Matt Swain used to say? Every day, the world starts afresh.
But it's the people who drag their feet.
Yes.
You're long enough to get here.
Why don't you relax, man? I work for a living, remember?
You've got 10 minutes, Mr. Weber.
Listen, Chandler, you're lucky that I even showed up at all. I mean, what's the big joke about you having your attorney call me at the painting house?
That was no joke, kid. Just a taste of things to come if you don't play ball with me.
If you have something to say, Chandler, say it.
I want you to get Stephen Cord over here and make sure he comes.
Why should I?
I'll tell you why. Because if you don't, Mr. Martin Peyton's going to know that his faithful chauffeur played host to Jack Chandler.
Try again, Chandler. You walked into my house uninvited. You forced yourself in, remember?
Mr. Peyton's never going to buy the window bit. He's a smart old guy. I couldn't even arrange to take Rachel away if I didn't have your house to work out of. I called her on your phone. Now, you think it over, pal.
You want to know something, Chandler? You're pathetic. Really pathetic. Do you think anybody in this town, including Mr. Peyton, is going to take your word for anything you say after what you did? No. Now, Mr. Peyton hired me when everybody in this stinking town was against me. Do you think he's going to fire me now because of the say-so of an old creep like you? No, you're finished, Chandler.
Now, you listen to me, you puffed-up car jockey. You don't get Stephen Cord over here. I'll make it so hot for you that they'll think you're the one that wanted to take Rachel and I just went along for the ride. I'll see that they throw the book at you. I'll tell them anything and everything they want to hear, and I'll make them believe it. They'd love to get you back, Weber, and I'm just the man to help them do it.
It's too bad you didn't get Rachel across that state line before they caught up to you. Because then they could put you away for good, Chandler.
Nobody's putting me away. I'm going to get out of this thing, and Stephen Cord's going to help me.
Stephen Cord? Stephen Cord wouldn't even spit on you, mister.
Oh. When he hears me out, the whole ball game will be changed.
You know what I think, Chandler? I think you're bluffing.
Am I? Well, let me tell you something. I've been a long time in this town. And one of my oldest friends is a certain Mr. Leslie Harrington.
Don't believe you, Chandler.
Stephen Cord will. He'll be pretty fascinated some of the things that happened between me and certain Mr. Harrington.
Mr. Harrington? Well, if you've had something against Harrington for so long, how come you haven't put the screws to him? I mean, he's got a lot of bread, right?
Sure. But he left me stuck with a Bush League attorney that the court appointed. That's why I've got to get Stephen Cord. He's the lever that I need to pry Harrington open.
You and Harrington, huh?
Yeah. Sounds like you're getting a little interested, Weber, huh? I wonder if it's true what they say that old man Peyton has a standing offer to set up anybody who can deliver the goods on his son-in-law.
Do you want to hear something, Chandler? I've never heard anybody say that.
Now, you listen. You get me Stephen Cord, and I'll get you a complete rundown on the prominent Mr. Harrington. You know, you play your cards right. You can name your own price. You won't have to worry about a thing the rest of your life.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, Chandler. If you tell me all about it now, maybe I can get the old man to go to bat for you.
Don't try to promote a promoter, Lee. It don't work. You just get me Stephen Cord and everything will be all right. For the both of us. Guard.